Hi, my name is Larry Novarita, and I'm from Nova Woodworks, my company. And today I want to talk to you about installing returns, mitered returns on wooden stair treads. I have a job where I have 12 white oak stair treads that I need to put right-hand returns on. And I thought this would be an ideal time to take some videos of the process that I use. And my lovely wife Linda volunteered to do the video, and she's gonna be with us through the process and show you how it's all done. So come on into the shop here. Hi, I'm in the shop now and I've got the treads loaded on my cart, and I just loaded the last one in here. And I want to explain to you what you probably know what a return is, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. But anyway, the way I do it is, this is a tread I got from my supplier, and a return is a piece of wood that goes along the edge so that you don't have any end grain. You want the edge grain along the edge of the tread. I have a sample tread here that I use to show people a finished product. Naturally, it's not as wide as a tread, but it shows the return and how it's routed in place and routed on the end and that part, so that it's finished and ready to go up on the staircase. So I'll get started on this tread here real quick, and I want to show you I've got a jig that I use here, and these are going to be right-hand returns. As you're standing in front of the tread, the return's on the right. There's a left-hand return would be on the left. So I put the jig down here like this, and the first step in doing this is I need to mark a pencil line right there, because most of this I'm cutting out with a jigsaw. And then if it was a left-hand return, what I would do is I'd move this over to this side, it's multi-sided, and put a pencil mark there too. But being these are all right-hand returns, I'm concentrating on that. You can see I've got them all marked here. And then I'll go through the process after I cut out with a jigsaw. I cut it out a little bit proud, and then this is used to run my router against this template here that cuts it nice and smooth. Okay, I've got my blade loaded up in my jigsaw, and I've got a really rough blade in here just to cut through this 1-inch thick white oak. So I want to get started cutting all these returns off of the one edge, and like I say, I want to keep it proud of this line, about a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, and the router will clean up the rest. So I'm going to get started cutting it. Okay, I just got done cutting the end off of this tread, and the piece is it's going to be a scrap piece now. But now I've got this cut out and I need to replace it with something. So that'll be these pieces. I've cut out some returns, and you see how the edge grain goes along this way is what we're looking for. So I've got 2 jigs that I use. This one was the one originally I used to put the pencil line on, and I also run my router along here to clean that up to make it even with this template edge. And then to make this piece fit right in there, the first thing I have to do is cut this miter here. And I have another jig here that after I cut that, let me cut that way, and this is locked in place, and then it follows this template edge around here. I cut the miter off because I wouldn't be able to do it otherwise, and it follows that template. What that does after it's cut with a router, it's a perfect, it matches the edge just right, and then that will match in here after that's cut out. I haven't cut this, still rough cut, but I need to cut them all before I do that. So these jigs are homemade. I just made them myself, and it takes a little bit to make, but you just get the male section here to match the female section here, and once you get that to match, they'll fit in just perfect, as you'll see later down the road. Well, I got the rest of the treads cut on the ends to accept the new returns I'm going to put on them. So I've got 8 treads here that are 4 foot, and 4 treads here that are 3.5 foot, but it's the same. All I got to do now is put the returns on. So I'll clean them up with this jig I talked about earlier. I'll show you how that's done in a little bit. But right now I just want to show you over here that I have some of the returns. Oh, as a matter of fact, they're all the returns cut to go into the ends of the treads once this is all machined. And the reason the size of these now are, I cut them about 13.5 long. They're about 1 inch and 5/8 wide, okay? And the reason I cut them like that, they go into this jig here. And I have them overhang about 1/16 of an inch, clamp it down. And I'll show you how this is done too when I set the router up for this task. And what happens is there's a little bit of overhang all along this edge. The router bearing follows this template guide here, and it cuts it to that, which will also match the female portion of the end of the tread. And the reason I cut them at that, because a standard tread, everybody knows, is about 11.5. And what I like to do is, after I glue this all on, I cut it so that there's 1.5 inch protrusion out the back, and then it's all routed and ready to go. Now you can make it longer if you want. You just have to make a longer jig. That's it. So that's the reason I do that, and it ends up to be about 1 inch and 9/16 wide on this return. So that's about it for what I've got ready, and I'm going to set up a jig now, that jig, to trim off the ends of those treads. So I'll show you how that's done. Template, and I'm going to put it on the end of this tread, and I'm going to move it right up to about 1/16 inch to the end there. And then this piece here is just a filler piece so that the router can ride on this base. Now I need to clamp that down, so I got a couple clamps here. It clamps it to the table saw bench or whatever bench you're working with, and also it clamps this jig down to hold it secure. So you can see that there is 1/16 of an inch protruding away from the template. And to clean that up, it's just a bearing bit, top and bottom. And this bearing here rides on this template here. The cutters clean up the end of the tread. So this bit you can get from, I got it from Infinity Tools, in case you need one. It really works great. So we're going to go ahead and trim this up, and you'll see how it's done. So that's the first one. We've got 11 more just like it. And then after we're all done with this, I'll show you how I do the actual pieces that go in here. Okay, it took about a half an hour to do the rest of the ends of the treads, which are sitting over here. They cleaned up nice and clean. So now we got to make the return insert to fit in there just perfect. So I'm using the same router bit as I use to do the edges. And I had mentioned it was an Infinity brand. And here I found the number on it. It's an Infinity cutting bit, and this is it's 06-692 Mega Flush Trim bit. What's nice about this bit, it has up shear, it's a down shear on that one and up shear on that. So it kind of reduces the chip out when you're running it through the router. So I'm going to show you how I put this on here now. This is the blank that'll fit in there eventually. So this goes on here, a little bit of overhang, about 1/16 of an inch. Clamp those down, and then this rides against the bearing and cleans that up nice and clean. So I'm going to turn the dust collector on and then the router and clean it up. going to take it over to the tread and we'll see how it fits in there. Hopefully it fits in great. Oh, you see that it fits in real good. Nice tight fit. And the next step is to just glue all this together. I'm ready to glue these things up now, so I wanted to show you what I use. And one of the first things that I really like using for this, I have a few of these Bessie clamps. This one here is a 50-inch clamp, and so I've got two of them. I lay them out on my table saw, and I lay them on these two lines. This is just by accident. I glued this top off some time ago, but these two lines really work out good for, and I'll tell you why I line them up later. But anyway, so I grab a tread, lay it in the clamps, and get a matching insert for. And then what I like to do is just hold it up roughly here and kind of mark it with a pencil. I'm only going to spread glue up to there. I don't need the glue to go all the way to the end. So I take my little glue bottle here, and I like to apply glue on this part and the other part, not just one, because it gives me enough glue surface or glue to squeeze out, and I know I got a good bond. So I spread that on there like that, and then I pick this up and just put the glue on this side enough so that it gets in those pores, because it is edge grain to end grain. I've never had one come off, so this glue holds great. Okay, put that back down, and then I get this in place. And then what I want to do is just lightly pull it together here. And you'll see the glue squeeze out. I don't want to crank it down too much, just enough, just for the squeeze out. Okay, I got that good. And you can feel as you're gluing to make sure that these two are both even with each other. And then I like to do this to pull that miter in. I like to hook another clamp there, and just, you'll probably see it squeeze out some more. See, when it squeezes out some more, that's enough. So we tighten that up really good and tight. Okay, so then I also like to just do a quick wipe with the rag, get most of it off, unless I gotta sand the glue off. It's easier on my belts. Okay, and then the reason I put these things on this line, because it lines up so good, everyone is going to be the same pretty much. And I've done a few before. I'll show you how I can stack these on here. And I can just keep stacking them up until I get done. Well, I'll probably stack 6 high and then I'll be good. But that's how it works there. And so I'm going to do the rest of them, finish those up, and then after that, we'll take it from there. Well, I've taken all the treads out of the clamps this morning, and everything is glued on to the end like it's supposed to be. So what happens is when you glue that return on, it leaves that little lip up on the top when it goes against the front edge of the bull nose, and I like to take that off before I round over that edge. So that's one of the first things I like to do. So what I do is just take a sanding block like this and round over the edge just to get rid of that lip. You can see the difference there, and it probably lessens the chance of the router bit catching and maybe ripping up the grain, anything like that. So and then the next thing I need to do on all the treads is to cut the ends, because I left the returns a little long, and I want it to be 13 inches long from the front of the tread to the back of the return, and that will give me an 1.5 inch overhang. Now you can adjust that to whatever size you want. That's just the size I work with all the time, and it works well for most jobs, but you never know, that custom job might come up. So I'm going to cut that end off and just run the bull nose against the table saw fence and set it to cut that piece off on all of them, and they'll be all the same. So, and after that, the next step will be sanding, and I'll show you that process when I get to it. So we got all the front ends sanded with the little block sander. I cut all the treads, the returns to, it's 13 inches, so there's an 1.5 inch reveal on the back, protrusion on the back, and now I'm getting ready to sand. So this is before sanding. They came out pretty good. You can probably sand it with a belt sander and an orbit sander. I mean, it's so close. But in my business, what I do is I do a lot of sanding for people, so I do have a wide belt sander. If you have one that you can get a hold of or rent some space on one, that I would suggest that. It makes it so easy. So I'm going to turn mine on, run a couple treads through, and you'll see how it cleans them up from this to the sanded piece. Now this piece here, I'm running along with it so that I can get this the same exact thickness as this, so when I do set my router bit, I can have the same thickness here and set my round over, so I'll get a nice bullnose edge on that. So I'm going to turn on my sander to make some noise and my dust collector. One pass, we've got it to 120 grit. What my sander has, it has two sanding heads on it. So the first head was an 80 grit, the second head is a 120 grit. So then I'll just go back and orbit sand it later on after I bullnose the edges. So that's the process right now, and I'm going to do the rest of them, and then I'll also do the back side too, just to make sure everything's sanded up just right. So that's it for the sanding. Hope you can get a hold of somebody with a wide belt sander. You see how easy it makes it. So I've got all 12 sanded, both faces. The sand came out really good, and I'm ready to put the radius on the end here on the return and also on the back. And to do that, I'm going to use, I've got a 1/2 inch router bit from Freud that I like to use, and that's the actual model number. And you see the thing has 4 cutters on it. It has 2 smaller ones that get rid of a lot of the wood, and then it's got the detail round over that cleans it up. So I'm going to chuck that in my router, and it takes a little special base because it's a big bit. And then another thing I want to do is I can test it out on that piece that I ran along with the treads. So I've got that one piece that is as thick as the treads now, and I'll do the testing on the roundovers and make sure I got a perfect bullnose. The other one is this piece here, which I also ran with my treads, and I push that up against the back like that. I got to cut out in the back this little notch just because if there's any crud in the corner, it lines up good. But what that does is when the router bearing follows the edge here and hits that, and then you won't get any blowout on that part, because otherwise if you didn't back it up with anything, it could possibly blow that out. So that's the reason I'm going to do that, and I'll just do that on every one as I'm routering. So let me chuck that up into router, and we'll get going on it. All right, I got the router bit set up in my router, so I tested it out on that test piece, so it will cut a real nice bull nose, cutting from one side and then flipping it over and do the other. So now what I'm going to do is put this one tread in here and clamp it to my table saw table so it stays in place. And I'm going to go over the front edge here and these to get the bull nose on there. So that's the piece, that's the other piece I also sanded, put in the corner to prevent it from blowing out. So I'll put that in there. Got my router all set, and then I'll flip it over to the other side and we'll do the other side. This guy over to the other side real quick, clamp it down, and do the other side. Alright, there we go. Make sure this fits, we're good. Alright, do this other side. About all it takes. Now, almost no ridge down the center. It worked out good, but the next step after this is when I get them all bull nose is to sand it all, and we'll do that route real quick. But you see it, nice bull nose on the end and on the back side. So I'll get out the sander in a bit after doing the rest of them and sand them up, and that's gonna be about it. So see you later. Okay, we're pretty much at the final stretch here. We got this tread here. We'll call it the last tread because it is. And I put this little block of wood on the end of my table saw because it stands up straight so that I can put the tread against here. And then I grab a clamp. This is just for final sanding. It makes it easier to sand. I'm not going to sand. You guys know how to sand. So what I do then is I can sand the top of this, the sides of this, and then get it nice and smooth. And I want to mention one more thing. I was reading the latest issue of Fine Woodworking, December 2019. They had a tip in there this morning, I read just this morning, about how to tie this little hose up from your vacuum cleaner to your sander, and it just keeps this whole thing out of the way. It's really nice, and it supports the cord and everything. So anyway, then what I do is I take this off here. What I like to do on these treads, this is the back side, I sand this part, and the reason because it has fine scratches from the wide belt, and I get the cross grain scratches out with the orbital, and just go here, and all I do is just do one pass along the edge because this is the bottom side. I like to do one pass with the orbital, get that clean, and then after that, then we'll do the top side. Okay, same thing. I like to get the fine scratches out of here, especially the cross grain scratches that are in the return. And then I like to sand the whole top of the tread with the orbital at a 120 grit. Gets it nice cleaned up and gets rid of any fine grain scratches. and just puts a nice finish on it. So that's how I do that. That's about it. I'm going to put it over here. You can see I got the rest of them here. I got them all sanded. And I just want to show you the nice connection here between the return and the tread. This is toluene, and I'll just wet this with rag a little, and it'll bring out the grain, and it'll kind of show you the nice mitered joint that you get when you use this system. So it came out really good, pretty happy. I've done lots of these, so they always usually come out pretty darn good. So anyway, that's it for this one. I want to thank Kevin DeLay from Rutledge Staircase here in Eugene, Oregon. He's the guy who showed me this process a long time ago. He's a great guy, and he's a master stair builder. Wanted to give him a little credit, and also want to give credit to my wife. She's been doing a great job on the video here. She's taken it with just my iPad, and she does a fantastic job. And also, I want to thank my brother-in-law, Mike Kickert from Dyer, Indiana. He's going to splice all these little videos together, put it on YouTube so that you can watch it over and over again, because I know it's going to go viral. So thanks for watching, everybody, and hope this helps out, and you can use this on your treads. And many happy returns.